Good evening, I'm Marivelle Tarouk. The Prime Minister has cancelled a trip to Barbados as the government faces growing pressure over anti-pipeline protests. Blockades held in support of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs in British Columbia have severely disrupted train services across the country. As Olivia Stefanovich reports, Mohawks near Belleville are continuing to block a key rail route a day after a visit from the Federal Minister of Indigenous Services.
The Mohawks are making their message clear. Despite a visit yesterday from Indigenous Services Minister Mark Miller, they're not going anywhere. That has forced Justin Trudeau to stay in Canada.
Our Prime Minister needs to come here and out west and get the real stories.
CBC News has obtained audio recordings of part of the meeting at this community centre. They were taken by an Indigenous activist inside, and they show Miller's attempt to get rail traffic moving, even temporarily, appear to be rebuffed.
Is that there'll be a temporary drawback, allow trains to go through.
Get the red coats out first. Get the blue coats out of down here. Then we can maybe have some common discussion on the case.
The recordings also reveal one of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs joined the discussion over speakerphone. The chief asked the Mohawks to dig in.
The progress was modest. We talked openly, frankly, painfully at times.
After the meeting, Miller characterized the discussion as productive, but said there's a lot more work that needs to be done.
And my hopes is this is resolved in a peaceful process because the people in that room are dedicated to peace.
It is better to entertain dialogue and talks rather than having police forces intervene.
This regional chief took part in negotiations around the 1990 Oka standoff, when a call to action by local politicians led to the death of a Quebec police officer. Today, Miller told Radio-Canada the current negotiations are haunted by the shadow of Oka. The government is weighing the potential for violence against public anger and opposition jabs.
It would have been significant for the federal government to react more quickly.
Now, the Prime Minister's office says he's putting together an incident response team to deal with this growing crisis. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Tyne-Dahnega.
CN is speaking out tonight, saying the rail blockades popping up across the country are severely impacting train service, specifically here in Ontario. They say the demonstration near Belleville has led to hundreds of cancelled CN and VIA trains and shortages of propane and other consumer goods. Angelina King has more on the economic concerns and what CN is saying.
CN and other groups say that this blockade is having a serious impact on the country's economy and on some people's livelihoods. CN says right now one of its main concerns is safety, saying people demonstrating near or on the tracks and on rail cars is extremely unsafe. The company says earlier this morning a blockade popped up just south of Winnipeg. It was still dark outside. Fortunately, train operators were able to spot it and stop the train from about 300 meters away.
They have a right to protest peacefully. They shouldn't be having illegal protest on our operating lines because it's clearly not a safe behavior. And the last thing we want is somebody getting hurt because of them being on a track where they shouldn't be.
In total, about 450 CN employees have received temporary layoff notices because of all of this. Some have since gone back to work. CN has obtained a court injunction to stop the blockades in Belleville, but the OPP have yet to really enforce it. CN says that it is encouraging dialogue between the federal government and the Mohawk First Nation, but says it wants the blockades to stop.
This is not an issue involving CN per se, and that protesters would elect to blockade the CN rail line as a way to demonstrate against something that the railways are not involved in is somewhat troubling, to say the least.
Demonstrators say this is all about fundamental rights, and they're, quote, shutting down Canada in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. Now, CN transports about $250 billion worth of goods every year, everything from coal, grain, and propane to fresh fruit, clothing, iPhones, and medical supplies. The Canadian Propane Association and the Retail Council of Canada say there are shortages of propane and consumer goods because of all this, and they're concerned that it's going to get even worse.
I don't think they need to hold all of the Canadian economy hostage and not being able to function.
CN says when the blockades do come down, it'll take a few weeks until everything is back up and running again as normal. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
A 9-year-old boy is presumed to have drowned after falling through ice in Lake Erie yesterday afternoon.
This is a recovery situation at this point. It's a 9-year-old boy from the area who's missing, and we're hoping, just to give the family a little bit of closure to recover the body.
It happened at Peacock Point, about 60 kilometers south of Hamilton, around 4:30. 2 boys, aged 8 and 9, and a 10-year-old girl were on the ice near the shoreline when police say a wave came up and swept the 2 boys in. The girl ran to the road and waved down a vehicle. 2 bystanders were able to rescue one of the boys. He was taken to hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. The other 9-year-old did not resurface. Police say the boy is the little girl's brother. And police are investigating a double shooting outside a mall in Thornhill tonight. It happened at Promenade Mall around 8:30 when 2 men were shot in the parking lot. They were both transported to a trauma center with serious injuries. Police are now looking for the suspect, who they describe as a male with a mask. They believe he is armed with a handgun. Anyone with information is asked to call police. A 51-year-old man is dead after being struck by a vehicle in Brampton. Police were called to Beauvais Drive West and Brisdale Drive at about 9 p.m. yesterday. Peel paramedics transported the man to hospital in life-threatening condition, but he later died of his injuries. And a man in his 20s is now in stable condition after a shooting in downtown Toronto this morning. It happened near Yonge Street, south of Gerrard Street West, at about 4:30. Police say a man in his 20s suffered serious gunshot wounds but made his way to the nearby Chelsea Hotel. Paramedics picked him up there and transported him to hospital. The Gun and Gang Task Force is now investigating. Police also asking for help locating this man tonight, who's part of a robbery investigation. Police say at around 2 p.m. on February 7th, a man approached an 87-year-old woman at an apartment near Keele and Shepherd Avenue West. She was thrown from her walker to the ground and robbed of her personal items and memorabilia from her late husband. If anyone recognizes this man, police would like to hear from you. It's time for our first look at the weather this Sunday night, and Christina is back with that. So how are we looking to start the week, Christina?
Well, first off, we had a beautiful day today, and that's going to continue tomorrow. Now, we are going to have a beautiful afternoon at -2. It will feel like -6, but a beautiful day overall for Family Day. You definitely want to get out there and enjoy some exterior activities, perhaps, because it is the calm before the storm. In the afternoon, we are looking at this low pressure system come in. Now, this is going to blanket northern Ontario with some snow. This is going to forge into southern Ontario into the evening, but this is a snow to rain story. So you're not going to wake up Tuesday morning expecting snow. It's going to be more about the rain. Now, behind that snow and rain, we are also looking at some gusty wind conditions. So it's going to be a breezy system that's coming into Toronto. Now, along with that system, we are going to see a little warm up when it comes to temperatures. So in comes the rain, but then in comes some warmer temperatures. Here's where we're going to be seeing the rain along the 401 corridor, predominantly around Niagara Falls, Hamilton, and London, Sarnia, and into Windsor. As far as our temperatures go, take a look. Here's your Family Day Monday at -2. Precipitation comes in on Tuesday, but temperatures are a little bit higher, and I'll have more details in your Long Ranger in the next segment.
Okay, we'll see you in a bit. Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Well, Toronto's basketball talent on display in Chicago tonight as some of our Raptors stars took to the court for the NBA All-Star Game. Our Greg Ross has been there all weekend, and he joins us live from the United Center tonight. Greg, an electric atmosphere really all weekend, but culminating in tonight's showcase.
Well, you know what, Maribel, you've got the best players in the world all assembled on one court. and not one of them is playing defense tonight. But that's what you've come to expect in all-star games. It is a showcase of the talent, and it's all about the offense. Right now, I'm just looking at the score, just shy of 300 points on the board right now, and we've still got about 5 minutes to go in this game. 148 there, deadlocks. So this one is going to go right down to the wire. Let's talk about what we're seeing out there on the court. Kawhi Leonard right now leading all scores, just shy of 30 points for Kawhi, a former Raptor, so people in Toronto very familiar with him. But the Toronto Raptors players not doing too badly either. At last check, Kyle Lowry had 11 points in his 6th All-Star game. Pascal Siakam playing in his 1st All-Star game, and he had 14 points. So not a bad showing for the 2 Toronto players. Nick Nurse coaching Team Giannis in his 1st All-Star game. No doubt he wants that win right now, but this one is going to go right down to the wire. That game is being played just behind me. You see some of the media has assembled here getting ready for the end of this game. Some people are going to go out onto the court, but just through those doors is where the game is happening right now, and most people still in their seats. We've seen some fans trickle out, a couple of high-profile fans. We saw Kanye West and Kim Kardashian leave in the 3rd quarter, walk down the hallway here. In fact, Kanye stopped to check out Buddy the Bull's shoes. That's the mascot, or Benny the Bull's shoes. That's the mascot for the Chicago Bulls. Kanye really seemed to like his shoes, stopped and took a picture of them, and then they left. We've seen some other people trickle out, like I said, but most people are in there. They're interested in seeing what's going to happen at the end of this game. Again, it's all about fun. Those guys are out there. There's some high-flying dunks. We're seeing, again, offense, lots of offense. And we've seen Kawhi Leonard. We've seen what Kawhi Leonard can do, and he right now is probably the odds-on favorite to win the MVP. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, the captain of that other team, doing pretty well also. So it depends, I guess, on who wins. The winner will get the MVP trophy, which is newly named after Kobe Bryant, Maribel.
A lot of memorial and tribute to Kobe Bryant there too this weekend. Greg, I'm going to let you get back out to the court so you can watch the tail end of that game. Thanks so much for all your work this weekend. Just want to note that too, that we couldn't show you highlights of the game because it is still going on and there are rights issues around that. Well, on to another iconic sporting person in Toronto, the Toronto Blue Jays and the baseball community today mourning the death of infielding great Tony Fernandez. He died last night after years battling kidney disease. The Jays were Fernandez's first big league team, and he was part of their first big successes. Talia Ricci has this look at how he's being remembered.
As a little boy, I always wanted to be somebody. I want to be another Dominican star.
Tony Fernandez was a 5-time All-Star. He played 12 seasons with the Blue Jays, won 4 Gold Gloves, and helped the Jays win a World Series.
Tony Fernandez empties the bases.
Tony Fernandez was one of the finest people I ever met in baseball.
Fernandez earned a long list of career highlights. He's the Blue Jays' all-time leader in games played, hits, and triples.
I was the guy that always, give him a hard time if he's going to let me catch a ball today.
But those who knew him say there was so much to love about him off the field, too. Fernandez leaves behind his wife and 5 children. He had been battling kidney disease and died from complications after a stroke.
What he did on the field was not for him, but for his family.
Fernandez spoke openly about growing up in poverty in the Dominican Republic. He said he first learned to catch using a milk carton as a glove and socks as a makeshift baseball. Humble beginnings that kept him grounded.
It really didn't have anything to do with dollars and cents or ego or anything like that. He was just sort of perfection driven.
A lot of baseball history was made by Tony Fernandez right here. He was originally signed by the Blue Jays in 1979 at age 17 and returned in time for the 1993 World Series win.
But he'd be falling down and throw it right to where it had to go.
He looked like he was moving in slow motion, right?
Fernandez won over fans and the baseball community with his kind spirit and love for the game.
I think that's why kids liked him, because he was so enthusiastic. He brought so much joy to the game.
There's Seattle. He's a star in the sky.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
It's been 40 days since 176 people were killed after a Ukrainian passenger plane was shot down in Iran.
40 days in this culture is supposed to represent the coming to closure after a tragic event, but in fact the community is even farther from closure.
The International Centre for Human Rights in Canada hosted this event aimed at seeking justice for victims of the tragedy. Iran has been under growing pressure to hand over the plane's black boxes to a third party to be examined and to compensate the families who lost loved ones. Canadians aboard the Diamond Princess cruise ship will soon be flown home. The ship has been quarantined in Japanese waters for more than a week over a coronavirus scare. But as Sasha Petrusik explains, the passengers' isolation won't be ending anytime soon.
Hundreds of Americans left the Diamond Princess cruise ship Sunday night, boarding buses on the Yokohama pier and later U.S. government flights to California. They are the first passengers allowed to go home, with Canadians set to follow, according to an announcement from Ottawa late Saturday. All are eager to escape what Vancouver's Jennifer Lee calls a luxury jail, a ship full quarantined where almost 1 in 10 have been gradually infected.
We have been quarantined for so long already, and the numbers just keep going up. So it is better to get out of here ASAP.
Lee and more than 200 other uninfected Canadians have been emailing and lobbying Ottawa to bring them out of the cabins and limited deck areas where they've been confined for almost 2 weeks.
We were elated today with the news, but it was a long time coming.
But it'll be a long time before the ordeal is over. Once they're flown to Trenton, Ontario, they face another 2 weeks of quarantine. Greg Yarex is exasperated.
Glad the government finally got off their butt and did something. 14 days more quarantine. I'm running out of stamina.
The Diamond Princess has the largest cluster of the disease outside China. But in China, the coronavirus continues to spread, infecting more than 70,000 and killing over 1,500. State media is claiming signs of progress. The change shows prevention and control are starting to work, says the National Health Commission, though its numbers are hard to track because China's way of counting has changed several times. Still, the political leadership in Beijing is under enormous pressure. A statement this weekend said that President Xi Jinping knew about the dangers of this virus 2 weeks before any serious moves to contain it. That was meant to reassure Chinese that he's on top of things, but instead, it's raised questions about why he didn't act sooner. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Hong Kong.
I was so just like, I couldn't believe it, and like I was mind blown.
This 13-year-old violinist is living out his dream, playing at one of North America's most prestigious concert venues. More on this young talent coming up. A 13-year-old boy is crossing one of his biggest dreams off his bucket list. The young Toronto violinist was chosen to play at Carnegie Hall in New York. Natalie Nanowski has his story.
You wouldn't think this big sound is coming from these young fingers. But Lincoln Haggart-Eves already has about a decade of experience under his belt.
We used to play music for him when he was really young, before he could even walk or talk. We would play the Beatles and Coldplay. We just had a feeling that he had some sort of musical ability.
Lincoln started learning the violin a month before his 4th birthday. By the time he was 5, his passion was obvious. Before long, he was winning competitions, a lot of them.
I like the most probably learning new pieces on the violin because I like to branch out and explore different types of pieces.
The hunger shone through in this audition that his mom sent to Carnegie Hall in New York for the American Protégé String Competition that's open to young international musicians.
I thought to myself, I'll just put Lincoln in and see what happens, and so I submitted the video. And then last Thursday, we just got word that he placed, and he will be playing in the winner's recital.
I didn't really expect that to happen, but it happened, so I was really happy and excited when it did happen.
He'll be playing Chardas by Monty this June in front of hundreds of people. Nervous? Not really.
I just focus on the thing I'm doing, and it goes away, and then I do fine. This is probably the top thing I want to do, but I do want to be in an orchestra, like the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, or maybe just a national orchestra. That'd be neat. Yeah.
Until then, he's perfecting his skills and has some pointers for those trying to tackle the challenging notes in their lives.
I just try to, go slowly and do that section over and over again until it sounds good.
Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Vaughan.
Wow. I don't know if you heard that, Christina, but the 13-year-old violinist, immense talent.
Remarkable,
Yeah.
Maribel, yes.
You kind of want the soundtrack to keep playing over your weather forecast.
Yes, I was listening to it. I thought that'd be beautiful background music for us here. Well,
and
along
good
with
weather
that
to go
music,
along.
yes, absolutely. Along with that beautiful music, I've got beautiful weather updates here for you. Tomorrow afternoon, Family Day, we're looking at -2. It'll feel like -6, so a great day to get out and spend with your family and your day off if you're not working, of course. That is the calm before the system because in comes that low pressure. Now, this is going to be bringing in some snow to northern Ontario Monday. So again, we're safe on Monday, but then Monday evening may be time to get home because that snow is going to be becoming rain in southern Ontario. So it's more of a rain story for us in southern Ontario. So this is the time to get back inside. Now, behind that rain, we are also going to be looking at some gusty winds. We can see here through Monday, even through Tuesday if you're downtown, heading up to 45 kilometers an hour in Toronto. Now, with regards to the rain, we are looking here into that 401 corridor as far as accumulation goes. Niagara Falls, London, Sarnia, and Windsor is where we're going to see the most amount of precipitation. Now, along with that precipitation, we have some warming temperatures. So you get a little rain, you get a little bit warmer temperatures. Here where we see that green-yellow letting us know that we're going to be above 0. So this is what the temperature is going to look like. We have a beautiful Family Day at -2. In comes the precip, better temperatures. In comes the colder temperatures for your Wednesday. This is what it's going to look like. Toronto, Hamilton, Barrie, and Oshawa. Same thing for Kitchener, Burlington, Markham, and Pickering.
Okay, thanks so much for this, Christina.
Thank you.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. We're going to leave you with a look at one of the biggest fitness events in the city. The winter edition of the City Shred happened this morning. More than 500 people came out for a massive 90-minute workout session. Pretty great way to start their day. Have a great night, everyone.